Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we really dig into the sources you send us.
That's right. We get these fascinating materials and, well, we explored the insights.
And today, we're looking at a YouTube video transcript. It's all about the Hotsuma Tsutae.
Ah, yes, the Hotsuma Tsutae. It takes pretty big claim, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests it's an even older record of Japanese history than, the Kojiki or the Nihon Shoki.
Which is quite something. And what's really interesting about it, too, is the form it takes.
Right. It uses that ancient script, the Jindai Moji.
Exactly. Specifically, a type called Oshite Moji. And the whole text isn't prose. It's written as these long poems, 57-syllable songs.
Wow. So not just history, but poetry. And it claims to reveal ancient philosophy, customs.
And the nature of the gods themselves, yeah. Totally different perspective.
So for this deep dive, we're focusing on something specific our listener highlighted, the origin story of Amaterasu Omikami.
Or, as she's called in the Hotsuma Tsutae, Amaterasu.
Amaterasu. Okay. And we'll be contrasting her birth story here with the, let's say, more standard Kojiki version.
Definitely. And it's probably worth mentioning, the source video already covered some earlier bits of the Hotsuma Tsutae.
Good point. Like the first gods, the lineage.
Yeah, the initial 8 deities, the story of Izanagi and Izanami's first child, Wakana no Tsukaite Hikohime, one who was abandoned.
Right, we'll get into that. And also, why the gods lived so long, the origins of customs.
Yeah.
It sets the stage.
It does. Provides that necessary background for Amaterasu arrival.
Okay, so let's kick things off. The video poses this question right at the start. Why did Izanagi and Izanami get 5 heavenly dwellings ready when they only had 4 kids planned?
Yeah, it's a bit of a puzzle. And the Hotsuma Tsutae's explanation immediately shows how different this text is.
How so?
Well, it talks about Hikohime. She was actually their very first child.
Oh, okay. Not Hiruko.
No, Hikohime first in this telling. But she was abandoned. The reason given is an inauspicious year called Heaven's Knot.
Heaven's Knot. What did that mean?
The belief, according to this text, was that if a girl was born then, she'd inherit the father's impurity. And a boy would get the mother's kumakari.
Kumagakari. Like a kind of spiritual weakness or bad luck?
Something like that. A predisposition to misfortune tied to the mother's line in this specific context. It's quite specific.
So Hikohime, being female, inherited the father's issue and was abandoned.
Yeah.
Set adrift.
Pretty much. Put in a small boat, sent out to sea. It's quite harsh.
Yeah, definitely. But she survived.
The Hotsuma Tsutae says she did. She was rescued, apparently, and raised in a place called Hirota.
Okay, so already a different family dynamic than we usually hear about.
Completely. And this whole situation, this abandonment, it leads to Izanami's father stepping in.
Ah, right. He gets involved because there's no ruling woman.
Exactly. He saw this lack of female leadership as a problem. He felt it was causing, social disorder, hindering the proper divine way.
So he summons Izanagi and Izanami, tells them to sort it out.
Essentially, yes. He tasks them with rectifying this, guiding the people properly, and implicitly having a daughter who could lead.
Right. So how did they try to conceive this child? The ritual.
Well, Izanami's father gave them 2 sacred items, and following his instructions, they did this ritual circling a pillar in opposite directions.
And they exchanged greetings?
Yes, specific ones. As they passed, Izanagi would say, "Ai ya iotoko," like, "Ah, fine man."
Okay.
And Izanagi replied, "Wayureishi uomi." Oh, what a lovely woman.
Ai ya iotoko wayureishi omi. It sounds quite formal, almost courtly. The video called it the Iyo no Uta.
That's the one, the Iyo no Uta. It had this specific 5-4 syllable rhythm, thought to have like a magical power for conception.
But it didn't work the first time.
Not according to the Hotsuma Tsutae. Their first attempt resulted in a stillborn child. This is Hiruko.
Ah, so Hiruko comes second here, after Hikohime. And he was also set adrift.
Yes, same fate. Another child cast away. It really paints a picture of early struggles.
Definitely more challenging than the usual story. So back to those 5 heavenly dwellings. What was the connection?
The text says Izanagi and Izanami blamed themselves, or rather their lineage, for this outcome. They use the term aji.
Aji, like self-blame.
Sort of, yeah. A sense of inherent flaw or limitation in their line. And that's why they prepared 5 dwellings, anticipating more difficulties, perhaps.
Interesting. So it wasn't just planning, it was almost preparing for failure.
Or at least acknowledging the challenges they felt inherent in themselves. It adds a layer of vulnerability.
Okay, I see. So what did Izanami's father suggest after this failure?
Well, he figured the rhythm of the Io no Uto wasn't quite right for conceiving a ruling woman, so he advised them to change the chant.
Change the words.
Change the words, and importantly, have the man speak first.
Ah, okay. So Izanagi starts this time. What do they say now?
Izanagi said, Ana ya umashi otome ni o. Ah, I've met a beautiful maiden.
More direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Izanami responded, Wana ni umashi otoko ni aki. Ah, I'm in love with a wonderful man. Definitely more expressive.
So did this work? In the Kojiki, changing the order is the key, right?
It is in the Kojiki, but
Right.
here, in the Hotsuma Tsutae, nope.
Still no child.
Still no conception, which is a major departure. It emphasizes this ongoing struggle, this effort. Creation isn't instant, even for them.
Wow, okay. That really heightens the drama. So Izanami's father, he must have been getting pretty worried by now.
He was. The video transcript says he was distressed. He looked at Japan, saw the population growing.
But no strong divine leaders emerging.
Exactly. Lots of descendants, sure. But he felt there was a shortage of those who truly embodied the way of heaven, who could really govern justly and help the people.
A leadership crisis, essentially. But Izanami, she made a promise, didn't she?
She did. Even though they were still struggling, she sent a message to her father. She assured him, don't worry, I will eventually have 4 excellent children. They'll be capable leaders.
So she kept the faith. But her father, still anxious, he took more action.
He did. He was getting desperate. He used divination, found this place called Tsukikaho, and built 4 shrines there.
4 shrines.
And then he started this intense ritual, 1,000 days of purification and prayer, really pleading with the heavens for capable, divine children.
1,000 days. That's incredible commitment. Did it achieve anything?
According to the Hotsuma Tsutae, yes. Something miraculous happened during the ritual.
What was it?
Solar and lunar energy started emitting from his eyes, like tears of light. It was seen as a sign, a bit of hope, a response.
Energy from his eyes. That's a striking image. Powerful. What were Izanagi and Izanami up to during this 1,000-day period?
They weren't idle. They were doing their own ritual up on Mount Fuji.
Mount Fuji, okay. What did their ritual involve?
It involved washing their eyes, the left eye at sunrise, praying to the sun god, then the right eye at night, praying to the moon god.
The eye washing. But here it's different from the Kojiki, right?
Absolutely crucial difference. In the Kojiki, washing the eyes creates Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, and Susanoo directly. Here, it's part of this long, ongoing effort to conceive. It's prayer, seeking intervention, not the act of creation itself.
Got it. So it's supplication, not generation. That changes things. And then Ishikorodome comes into the picture.
Yes. The goddess Ishikorodome. She's famous as the creator of the Yata no Kagami, the sacred mirror.
Right.
Moved by their devotion, apparently she made 2 new sacred mirrors specifically for them, to help them conceive.
Mirrors to aid conception. Fascinating. How did they use them?
They took these mirrors and prayed intensely for another 1,000 days.
Another 1,000 days. Wow.
Yeah. The text says their legs became bloodied from standing and praying for so long. It really drives home their dedication, their desperation, maybe.
Unbelievable perseverance. And then did they finally feel something, the solar energy?
Yes. It was during this period, praying with the mirrors, that they finally felt it. This distinct sensation of solar energy entering Izanami.
Ah, a clear sign at last. Hope.
A tangible sign, yeah. That their prayers, their rituals were finally beginning to work after all this struggle.
Okay, so a moment of hope. What happened right after that? Did they meet the mountain god, Oyamatsumi?
They did. On their way back from Fuji, presumably, they encounter Oyamatsumi. He's a major deity.
And he gave them something.
He provided them with special sake, tomi no sake it's called, sacred sake, specifically for their union.
Sacred sake. Reinforcing the ritual aspect. Were there instructions, this tomi no michi?
Yes, very specific instructions for the way of conception, the tomi no michi. The woman drinks first.
Okay.
And then during intimacy, she's meant to express her feelings through, pure sincerity, not words. And the key is the mutual drawing of breath together. That's what leads to conception.
Mutual breath. That's quite profound.
It is. The text calls it a secret of marriage, essential for having children, but also for, the harmony needed for good government. It connects the personal and the political.
A very deep connection. But hang on. Even after the solar energy, the sake, the instructions,
Yeah,
she still didn't conceive immediately.
that's right. Even after all that, no immediate conception. The Hotsuma Tsutae really emphasizes this difficult, drawn-out process. Perseverance is key.
And Izanagi started to worry about illness.
Yeah. 10 months passed, then a whole year after the sake ritual. Still nothing. Izanagi got really concerned, started thinking maybe there was some underlying sickness preventing it. You feel their anxiety.
8 years. The transcript said it took 8 years in total for them to finally conceive Amaterasu.
8 long years of trying. It's an epic struggle.
And when the birth finally happened, it wasn't normal.
Not at all. Truly extraordinary. Amaterasu was born in a round shape, like an egg, and still fully enclosed in the placenta, the ena no mama.
Like an egg inside the placenta.
Yep.
That must have been shocking. How did Oyamatsumi react?
Oyamatsumi was actually positive about it. He interpreted it as completely appropriate for such a divine child. A very auspicious sign, he said, for future happiness.
So a mark of divinity, not a bad omen. Interesting. And Izanami's father had an explanation too.
He did. He explained that the child had purified itself before birth, cleansed itself from something called Ayasuki Ito.
Ayasuki Ito? What's that?
The text calls it a hostile entity. It suggests that the child had to overcome some kind of prenatal spiritual challenge, and the egg-like form was the result of this internal purification.
Wow, battling hostile forces before even being born?
That's intense. So how did they open this ena no iwa, the placenta rock?
Carefully. They used a special tool. A long, thin board made from a branch of the ichinoki. That's the Japanese yew tree.
A specific wood, a specific action, and when she emerged...
Radiant, like the rising sun apparently. Filled the place with light. A truly divine entrance.
A fitting arrival after such a long wait. And that yew board, the ichinoki board, that became the shaku.
Exactly. The very board used to open the placenta became the shaku, the ritual scepter, used in purification ceremonies, even by the emperor later on.
Amazing.
And the text even connects the word shaku to saku, meaning fence, suggesting a protective quality.
A scepter born from birth and purification. Now, Kukurihime. She nursed Amaterasu, and she's Izanagi's sister here. Yes, that's a significant point. Kukurihime, also called Shirayama-hime, is Izanagi's elder sister in this version, and she takes on this vital role of nursing the divine infant.
Which is very different from the Nihon Shoki, where she mainly appears later to mediate between Izanagi and Izanami, right?
Totally different role.
Yeah.
Here she's a nurturing figure right at the start. It suggests maybe a different divine hierarchy or focus in this tradition.
Interesting shift. And when Amaterasu first opened her eyes, there were signs. Miracles.
Yes, 2 big ones. A huge white cloud suddenly appeared over Mount Fuji, and hail started falling. These were seen as heavenly signs.
A white cloud and hail, what do they signify?
The sound of the hail specifically was considered super auspicious, a kisho, good omen. So to mark this and the cloud, they made white banners, hata.
White banners for good fortune, and these became the yahata.
Precisely. These white banners, erected during palace rests, became known as yahata, and they started being used in really important ceremonies, enthronements, funerals, very sacred.
And yahata. That leads us to the Hachiman gods. The 8 banner gods.
That's the direct link. Yahata 8 banners connect straight to the Hachiman Shin, who are, incredibly widely worshipped in Japan.
But they're not in the Kojiki or Nihon Shoki.
Not by that name, no. Which is striking given how important they became. The Hotsuma Tsutae offers a unique origin here.
Right. The transcript mentioned the later association with Emperor Ojin.
Yeah, much later, Hachiman gets identified with Emperor Ojin. Stories about his mother, Empress Jingu, raising 8 banners, or banners descending at his birth.
But the Hotsuma Tsutae offers an earlier source.
Well, the video transcript notes there isn't clear textual evidence for the Ojin connection in the really early chronicles, and the term itself shifted slightly.
From Yahata to Hachiman.
Yeah, around the Heian period, Yahata emphasizes the location, or the act maybe, while Hachiman literally means 8 banners. It's a subtle shift, but the meaning solidified around Ojin later.
A bit of a historical puzzle. So, what is the Hotsuma Tsutae's explanation for the Hachiman gods?
It's very clear. Those 8 white banners, raised when Amaterasu was born, they represented 8 powerful deities.
Deities.
Yes, 8 guardian deities who protected the newborn central goddess, Amaterasu.
Guardian deities. That makes perfect sense with the banners. And they're linked to the directions.
Exactly. The 8 directions. They are identified as the Toka Ami Hitame, the 8 gods of the cardinal directions, who are actually part of the Oshite Moji system itself.
So the writing system reflects this cosmology. And the character O.
The Oshite Moji character O. It visually depicts this. Amaterasu is the dot in the center, and the surrounding part represents the 8 guardian deities, the 8 banners.
Wow. And the center point itself.
That central point represents Amenamna Kanushi, the very first creator god, And by extension, the emperor as the descendant. It roots the imperial line right back to the beginning, visually.
So the Hotsuma Tsutae is basically saying the Hachiman gods are the Toka Ami Hitami, the original guardians.
That's the core idea here, yes. And the later Ojin connection, maybe it was a way to tap into the power of these original ancient guardians.
A fascinating reinterpretation. Okay, let's talk about how Amaterasu Kami got her name. Kukuruhime is key again.
Absolute central. The text says she was the only one who could understand the baby's first words. Quite a gift.
And the first words were, "Ei, Yurishi," happy to be born.
That's what Kukuri interpreted, yes. Happy to be born brought joy to all the gods present.
Lovely. But then they asked for a name, and the baby said something else. Ukiki.
Correct. The next utterance was uhi. Sounds simple, but Kukurimi had to decode it.
And she broke it down syllable by syllable.
She did. Hui means great. Hai is the sun's halo. Ru is Uru, the spirit within the sun. And Ki is Kain, a pestle, symbolizing masculine strength.
Greatness, sun halo, sun spirit, masculine strength. Wow. That's a lot packed into Uiki.
It really is. So, based on her interpretation, the name bestowed was Uhino Mikoto.
Uhi no Mikoto. And the transcript notes a similarity to the Kojiki name, Uhiru no Muchi.
Yeah, an interesting echo there. Suggests maybe a shared root or concept, even with the different narratives.
And Kukurihime's own name came from this, because she listened and discerned.
Exactly. The phrase was kikikiri, listened and discerned. So she became known as Kikukirihime.
Kikurihime.
Which then, over time, shortened to Kukurihime. The goddess enshrined at Shirayama, her name literally comes from this act of understanding the divine infant.
Her identity is tied to that moment. And the Chrysanthemum Festival connection.
Ah, yes, the Choyo no Seku on 99. The name has Kiku, chrysanthemum, and Kukurihime's name has the Kiku sound from Kikukirihime and Kuri, chestnut, from Kukurihime.
And people eat chestnuts, then.
They do. It's a tradition. The video just touches on it, suggesting a possible, if mysterious, link back to Kukurihime through the sounds in her name and the festival customs.
Interesting how these threads might connect. Okay,
Yeah.
let's shift to Amaterasu Kami's early life and what happens later. She had a good upbringing.
Yes, the Hotsuma Tsutae says she was nurtured with love by the gods around her. A supportive environment.
But Izanagi and Izanami weren't the primary caregivers. They entrusted her to Izanami's father.
Right. This is another big difference from the Kojiki, where Izanami dies before Amaterasu is born. Here, Izanagi and Izanami are still together, busy with nation building.
So they delegate childcare?
They entrust Amaterasu Kami to Izanami's father, the East Lord, to raise. It emphasizes their ongoing mission and maybe a different structure of responsibility.
Okay. Different timeline, different family setup.
Yeah.
And there was this period of language problems, leading to the Awana Uta.
Yeah, the Hotsuma Tsutae describes a time when people's language became confused, chaotic. So Izanagi and Izanami created the Awana Uta together.
Song of Bubbles.
With 48 sounds, they traveled the land teaching it. Izanagi sang the first 24, Izanami the second 24. The goal was to purify language, bring clarity and unity.
Using song to fix communication. That's powerful.
Yeah.
What about Tsukiyomi and Suzunu's births? Also different.
Yes. Not simultaneous like in the Kojiki. Tsukiyomi, called Mochizuki no Mikoto here, was born in Tsukushi, which is Kyushu. And Susanoo Mikoto was born later in Sonokuni, which is around Kumano in Mie Prefecture.
So separate births, different locations. Is Susanoo still, well, a troublemaker?
Oh, definitely. Still a disruptive force in the Hotsuma Tsutae.
But does this text give a specific reason for his behavior? Something the Kojiki doesn't?
It does. It claims Susanoo was conceived during Izanami's menstrual period.
Ah, and that was considered bad.
In this cosmology, yes. It meant he inherited Shimogakari misfortune or negative influence tied to the bloodline at that specific time. The timing was crucial.
So his nature was predetermined by the circumstances of conception. What kind of trouble did he cause?
Constant crying, shouting, general disruption, but also, weirdly, replanting seeds in fields people had already sown.
Replanting seeds, that's oddly specific mischief.
It is, messing with agriculture, basically. And Izanami felt responsible for all this.
Why responsible?
She believed her own Kumagakari, which we heard about earlier, was passed to him because of when he was conceived. So, to sort of face this, she established the Kumano Shrine.
Facing her son.
Yes, facing towards him, as a way to confront the consequences. And the text explicitly states the name Kumano comes from her Kumagakari.
Wow, the place name itself holds that story. But Susanoo's actions got worse. tragically worse.
They did. His rampages escalated. Eventually, he set a whole mountain on fire.
Izami.
Izami was tragically caught in that fire, and she died.
She died in the fire Susanoo started.
Yeah.
That's a shocking departure from other myths.
It's very direct, very tragic, and Izanagi, of course, was absolutely devastated.
Inconsolable grief. He tried to visit her burial shrine.
He did. He was determined to go, but Kukurahime tried desperately to stop him.
Kukurahime again. Why did she try to stop him?
She warned him not to look, said seeing Izanami's decaying body would be a shameful sight. She urged him to remember Izanami as she was, beautiful and alive.
Protect the memory. But he didn't listen.
No, his grief was too overwhelming. He pushed past Kukurahime, forced his way in, and saw Izanami's decaying form.
And the sight horrified him.
Completely. Overwhelmed him with horror and despair. The finality of it hit him. He just cried out.
And this leads to their separation. But not like the Kojiki's chase through Yomi.
No, the Hotsuma Tsutae presents it differently. That night, Izanagi has this intense dream.
A dream.
Yes. A resentful Izanami appears, looking like a demon, and she unleashes 8 terrifying thunder deities on him in the dream.
Thunder deities in a dream.
And that dream sequence represents their final separation in this version. It's an internal psychological break, not a physical chase in the underworld.
That's a really interesting interpretation. More psychological. So what happened to Izanagi after this trauma? Purification.
Yes, he performs Misagi purification rituals, but he can't forget her. He's haunted by the memory, by his own harsh words maybe, confronted by his own weaknesses.
And this inner turmoil, it manifests deities, Magatsuhi no Kami.
Exactly. From his own troubled heart, Magatsuhi no Kami, the god of crookedness or misfortune, emerges, representing all his distorted feelings, his grief, his negativity.
And then the opposite, the gods of rectification.
Right after Magatsuhi, Kamunobi no Kami and Ohonobi no Kami appear, also from within him. These are the gods of putting things right, restoring balance.
So they arise from his struggle to heal.
Precisely. And the transcript notes these gods are in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki too, but here we get this specific origin story. They are born from Izanagi's internal battle to overcome his grief and negativity.
A powerful metaphor for healing. And through all this, Izanagi creates a song. A guiding song.
Yes, this whole painful journey, loss, self-reflection, confronting his darkness, finding balance, it leads him to compose this song, full of the wisdom he gained.
And he shared it with everyone, as a mikutonori.
In his later years, yes, he presented it as a mikutonori, like a divine decree or imperial message, his final will, basically, sharing his hard-won lessons.
What were the key takeaways from Izanagi's will, this song?
Several big points. He admitted that even though he helped build the nation with the Awanuita, Izanami's death just broke him. He couldn't bear it.
Honesty about his grief.
Yes, and a warning. Don't follow your spouse to the land of the dead. It brings shame.
Okay.
He reinterpreted Izanami sending the thunder gods in the dream, not as malice, but as her way, maybe even a kindness, to force him to let go of his attachment.
Ah, a different perspective on our actions.
His slow, difficult return from that dream, that symbolized the long path of self-correction. Suffering and looking inward, he said, that's what completed his heart, his spirit.
Growth through suffering.
And the path of purification, Misagi, and the path of song, these reveal the true way of Yamato. His hesitant steps became deliberate guidance, like drawing water for rice paddies, connecting Ashiwohiku, dragging feet, to Inowohiku, drawing rice guiding.
Clever wordplay.
And he said these events are the basis for pillow words in waka poetry. You need the god stories to understand the poems.
So mythology unlocks poetry.
Finally, the core message. Song purifies the heart, Misagi purifies the body. This whole package, that's the great way of Yamato to be shared.
Wow, that's incredibly deep. A whole philosophy born from personal tragedy and reflection. It ties everything together beautifully.
It really does. It gives such a unique human depth to these divine figures and explains the origins of major cultural practices through Izanagi's personal journey in the Hotsuma Tsutae.
Well, this has been really quite something. Diving into the Hotsuma Tsutae's version of Amateur Kami's origins, it's clear this text offers a dramatically different picture than the Kojiki.
It really does. And what's compelling is how it tries to explain why things happened. You know, the reasons behind the delays, the unusual birth, Kukurihime's role, Susanoo's nature. It weaves this intricate explanatory narrative.
Yeah, it fills in gaps or offers alternative reasons.
Yeah.
And as you said, we've really only covered the beginning of Amateur Kami's story here. The source suggests much more to come as she grows up.
Absolutely. More unique explanations, more drama, perspectives you just don't find in the mainstream accounts. It really challenges you to think differently about these foundational myths.
It certainly makes you consider how myths evolve and how different traditions preserve different facets of a story. So final thought for you, the listener. What does encountering an alternative origin like this, for a figure as central as Amaterasu Kami, tell us about how we interpret myths in history? Definitely something to chew on.
Indeed. A lot to think about.
Join us next time for another Deep Dive.